Welcome back. Well, there's still so much to learn, to know about what happened with the tavern shootings over the weekend. 16 people killed at that tavern in the Nomzamo informal settlement in Soweto. On the same weekend in Katlehong, 2 people killed. Gunmen started shooting at patrons at a tavern there. Eyewitnesses talking about people just running for their lives. Today, the member of the Mayoral Committee for Community Safety in Ekurhuleni, councilor Lethlogonolo Moseki, has been to visit the families of the people who were killed. The councillor has made the trip to join us here. Councillor Moseki, good evening, good afternoon, and thank you for your time. What's your message to the families, the people who lost relatives in this shooting?
Yeah, well, good afternoon to you, Stephen, and to your viewers at home. We indeed went to pay our last respect to the families of the deceased. We met with the families. Safe to say that, look, it's unbearable pain for them to have witnessed, but we gave them our word and reassured them that we will certainly work hand in hand with them. At least we cannot bring the deceased back, but we will make sure that justice is served to these families.
The police are obviously investigating. Are you a part of those investigations? Do you have an oversight role?
No, certainly. Remember, as a Metro Police, you then become a force multiplier to SAPS, and so as a result we're working hand in hand with them, and I can assure you from where we are that we even have a profile of one of the perpetrators, and I suppose closer to this afternoon one of those will be behind bars, and we will work closely with them to make sure that all of them are behind bars. We have made a point in a call that Ekurhuleni will have to live up to its name, which is a place of peace, and there's no place for criminals. We will face them to the bitter end.
You're confident someone will actually be arrested this afternoon?
Indeed.
So, I mean, obviously, a police investigation like this is incredibly intense. You've got to move very, very quickly. Are you happy then with what the police have been doing so far?
No, certainly. Like I'm saying, remember it's SAP's space to work on. We come in as a force multiplier, but I can assure you that our guys are on the ground working around the clock to make sure that justice is served. And as I've indicated to you when I came here, there's serious development in that area, and I am sure that we will then be able to communicate in due time the successes that we have been able to engage on.
It seems such an extreme act to go up to a tavern, pull out a gun, and start shooting. And it wasn't just one person, as I understand it, it was possibly 2. Is there any idea yet as to motive? I mean, whether this was a protection racket, as we've seen in Khayelitsha, whether there was some other motive behind this?
Look, we really don't want to speculate, lest we cause troubles. As we are calling upon communities, we know and understand that it's a hot potato, but we're calling upon our people to be calm and work with law enforcement officers. But we condemn this situation. It seems to be a trend that is sweeping throughout the country, and we're saying in Ekurhuleni it will never go any further than this. We are equal to task, and we will address this matter to the bitter end. And what we want to also make mention of the fact is that we have released a statement that we will be engaging on operations, because one of the other things that disturbs us is that we've got all of this establishment where we are not sure as to whether they're vetting people who are coming in there. As you might have noticed that East London. So we will actually be engaging in that particular tour to make sure that all of this establishment across Ekurhuleni are compliant, and such activities such as this can then be avoided going further.
Have you had problems with taverns in Ekurhuleni recently? I mean, a lot's changed during the pandemic. Some of it's around people's behavior, some of it is around loss of income. I think some of the economic dynamics have changed in certain areas. Has there been a problem with taverns in your area?
No, not really. Well, look, not what we know of thus far. We have been doing our routine operations, and so we haven't had any concern or a call for concern. Hence why we're saying we're going to respond to this as responding to a war. It's worrisome, and it needs to be certainly attended to as urgent as possible.
As I understand the system, it's the province, it would be Gauteng that grants liquor licenses. So you don't have authority over that. Through the Metro Police, you can patrol, you can make sure that laws are adhered to. How do you feel about our licenses and the license system at the moment in Gauteng? Are there too many taverns? Are there, I don't know, maybe not enough taverns? Do we need to have fewer but smaller? How do you think the system is working?
Look, the reality is that we've been working hand in hand with them. Remember, they cannot issue out any licenses without our consent. However, in one of our operations that we're conducting from time to time, remember, we have since launched the Buya Muteto operation, where we're going to check for compliance and ensuring that bylaws are enforced. And in all the activities and campaigns and the operations that we've actually went through, we came to realize that most are compliant, even though there's a concern that some of these licenses are not legit. But we're working closely with Gauteng Liquor Board, including other stakeholders such as your Home Affairs and whatnot. But thus far, we have been satisfied that most of them are compliant. Needless to say, though, that we need Gauteng Liquor Board to really be on the ground with us, because there seems to be an issue in terms of having their staff with us, issues of overtime come into place and whatnot. But we, from time to time, extending an invite to them to make sure that as we enforce the bylaws, they become party to that, to assist us to making sure that every one of these people are compliant.
You can't predict the future, I can't predict the future. But when we see so many things happening in taverns so quickly, I mean, first in Scenery Park in East London, then we have these attacks, and I accept what the police minister says. I don't see evidence that these attacks in Katlehong and the Nomzamo informal settlement in Soweto and Pietermaritzburg were coordinated. It doesn't look like that. But are you worried that something like this could happen again in your area?
Look, as I've indicated, this was a call for concern, and as a result, as I've indicated, we will respond to it as though responding to a war, meaning that we'll make sure, especially looking at this trend, we'll make sure that we have got our law enforcement officers on the ground everywhere across Ekurhuleni. Remember also that this past Friday, we actually had about 475 new boots on the ground that we have just released. So that on its own will assist us a great deal in terms of making sure that we are ever ready on the ground and we are able to attend to these issues. But I can tell you, we'll make sure that our officers are on the ground, especially over the weekends, so as to make sure that we address this matter and address it to the latter.
Councillor, thank you for coming in. I really do appreciate it. Councillor Lethlogonolo Moseki, the member of the Mayoral Committee for Community Safety in Ekurhuleni.